Hello and welcome back, or if you're new here or if we just haven't been properly introduced yet. My name is April. And how do I introduce myself? I would say I created this channel as a way for me to express my soul's work, my life's calling, which is to embody the presence of heaven on earth and to share my journey along the way, to help others see the path a little bit more clearly, not because you need me, but sometimes it is helpful to have a reminder, somebody to reflect back to you, your own divinity, as a divine remembrance of who we all are. So this is where I do that. In today's video, I'm going to talk about the higher self and just my own insights on what the higher self is. I will say, I don't know why I feel the need to say this. I have my Sacred Heart of Mary candle. I felt called to light my Sacred Heart of Mary candle while I do this video. And I really appreciate all of you that are willing to flow with me through these videos, because I do not plan these videos ahead of time. I receive a topic, or I feel called to talk about an experience throughout my day or what I'm personally going through, and then I just start the video and I just let it flow. So I really appreciate y'all's willingness to flow with me, because that's where the magic happens. So thank you. Okay, let's breathe. Let's take a few centering breaths, aligning to our heart, taking a deep breath in and deep breath out. Taking this time to center ourselves into our heart space. Becoming aware of our thoughts and becoming aware of our egoic mind, and choosing to drop down into the heart, into our observer. One more deep breath in all the way. And hold. Fully exhaling. And we can open our eyes. Awesome. So this topic came about this morning. I was contemplating my idea of the higher self while I was reading and meditating. I'm currently reading The Law of Light, Secret Teachings of Jesus by Lars Muhl. And this book sparked this curiosity of like, what is my, or more so I felt the spark of my higher self, and I was like, okay, like how do I explain what this feels like? And I meditated on it for a little while, and this is what was coming through. At the beginning of my spiritual journey, I viewed my higher self as something outside of me. I viewed my higher self as something that was gonna just drop down into my body and save my life, essentially. And so I was meditating and I was doing all these guided meditations of how to get in contact with your higher self. And it was very much so me seeking and grasping for something outside of me, showing myself that it was not within me, that it was actually something external that was going to come and save me. And so I was viewing my higher self as a savior outside of myself that was going to come and change my life. And in doing so, it amplified all other things in my life that I was seeking for outside of myself. And when we water the seeds of separation, which when we're seeking something external, we're watering the seed of separation. And so when we water the seed of separation by seeking something outside of ourselves, we're actually creating a greater distance between us and the thing we're seeking. So by looking outside of yourself, or thinking that your higher self is something that's just going to drop down all of a sudden one day and change your life and save you, you're actually creating distance between you and your higher self. You're creating separation. And it's not until you're willing to meet yourself exactly where you're at, drop down into your heart space and meet yourself exactly where you're at, and no longer being or playing the victim of your circumstances, but deciding to take full ownership of your life and say, yeah, perhaps this is not what I want my life to look like. Perhaps I desire or see better for myself, but I'm no longer blaming anybody or anything else for how my life looks. I'm taking full ownership. And I'm going to sit with this for a little while. I'm going to choose to sit with the disappointment, perhaps, or the shame, the anger, the grief. I'm going to sit with all of these different parts of myself. And actually, when you're doing that, you are operating as your higher self. When you're choosing to sit in the discomfort, to face everything in your life that is not aligned in the way that you would like it to be aligned, and to sit with that version of yourself, to sit with those emotions that are coming up, and just accept that this is where you are at in this moment right now, and to comfort yourself as you feel these things, to comfort yourself as these limitations arise, to comfort yourself as these thoughts arise. You are operating as your higher self when you do this. And so your higher self is not something that's going to drop down into your body and change your entire life. Your higher self is you. And you can either continue to water the seeds of your ego and continue to search external for a savior, therefore creating larger separation between you and the thing that you actually desire, which is, at the end of the day, peace, unification, abundance, joy, a sense of coming home. And when you're unwilling to meet yourself where you're at, you're creating resistance and therefore creating a larger separation between you and these things. And so when you choose to embody your higher self, it can be a little painful for a little while. It can be a little uncomfortable for a little while. And it will be painful and uncomfortable. And so to your ego, you will say to yourself, this can't possibly be the right path. I can't possibly be doing the right thing. There's no way that I am operating as my higher self right now because this is uncomfortable. This is not fun. This is painful. And this is the path of remembrance. This is the path of embodiment. You must first sit with all that you are not in order to arrive upon all that you are. Which all that you are is sitting right here, right now with you in this moment. It's just covered up by all that you are not. And if you are brave enough to sit with all that you are not and allow it to disperse, you will find that your higher self has been you all along. Has truly been you all along. Your higher self has been operating from within you all along, each time you chose to water the seeds of compassion, each time you chose to water the seeds of unification, of unconditional love, of joy, of abundance. That was your higher self all along. And the more clearly that you the more often that you practice this throughout the day, the more clearly you're going to be able to actually see in the now moment that you're operating from your ego. It takes practice. So for a while, it's a practice where at the end of the day, perhaps, you review your day and you say to yourself, I could have done better here, I could have done better there. I was clearly operating from my ego in that conversation. And then after you do your review, you release it all to God and you say, okay, I give this day to you, God. I give this day to you, Spirit. And I surrender to this day with forgiveness. The more you can do that at the end of your days, even if you can't fully embody the presence of knowing when you're in your ego throughout the day, as long as at the end of each day, you take even 5-10 minutes at night when you're laying in bed and review your day and just being the neutral observer of where you were operating from your ego and where you were operating in your higher self, and then just releasing it all to God and saying to yourself, okay, well, I'll try again tomorrow. I release this day with surrender, forgiveness, and compassion, and I'm gonna try again tomorrow. And the more you do that, the more consistently you're able to do that, the more it starts to seep into your day, and you'll actually be lucid, you'll be aware in each now moment, and it'll feel like a miracle. And it is a miracle, but it's a miracle because you've been choosing to operate from your higher self whenever you remember, and release the judgment of when you're operating from your ego. That is like the biggest trap right there, is falling into judgment of ourselves when we see we've been operating in our ego all day. Or when we just had a conversation with somebody and then after the conversation we're like, I was totally talking to them from my ego and not my higher self. And then in that moment, the most vital, important thing to do is to forgive yourself, release it to God, and move on. It happened. It was a learning situation. You noticed that you got caught up in your ego. That's all you have to do. And then forgive it, release it to God, and move forward. And so the longer we're able to do this and release our ego as often as we can to God, the more space we're creating for more of our higher selves to grow from within. It's not something that drops down from above you, that's outside of you. It's in every decision that you make and each perception that you choose to view life through. That's watering that seed in your heart, that where your higher self resides, where your Christ consciousness resides, is in your heart. And so the more you choose to forgive and release your ego, decisions, words, whatever that's coming from your ego, the more you choose to forgive and release, the more space you're creating for yourself to embody more of your higher self that is coming into your physical form through your heart. And so the more you can begin to live through your heart, live through forgiveness and compassion for yourself and others, the more space you're creating within your vessel to actually embody more light, to embody more of your true self, your higher self, your Christ consciousness self. And so, let me breathe for a second to come back to the point. Yeah, so your higher self does not exist as a savior outside of you, as something that's going to drop into your body and save you. It is you. Your higher self is you right now. Are you choosing to operate from your higher self? Now that's the question. That's a completely different question. If you're operating from your ego all day, every day, and then playing the victim like, I can't believe that this is happening and that's happening and my life's falling apart. Please, higher self, let's do some kind of meditation so that I can call upon my higher self to guide me. And then you wake up the next day and just continue to live from your ego, talk from your ego, and you don't notice and you don't pay attention to your actions throughout the day, there's nothing that's going to come to save you. There's nothing coming to save you. Your higher self is waiting for you to make the choice to begin taking action from it. Right? So nothing is coming to save you. Your higher self isn't coming to save you. It's something that you must choose. It's a choice you must make in each now moment. And now this isn't to say that you, like I've said, do not shame yourself. There's no sense in judging yourself or being mean to yourself. Just see that you've been operating and watering the seeds of the ego, and forgive and release and move forward. Each moment is a new moment. As I've said previously, the universe is unfolding in each now moment before you through your decisions and your perceptions. And so that is your higher self. Your higher self resides within your heart, and it's a choice you make every day and in each now moment of what you're operating from, which can be a painful uprooting of our old selves if we've been operating from our ego for so long, and now our whole lives are enmeshed with the egoic world. Our relationships are enmeshed, the way we eat, the way we exercise, how we spend our evenings, everything is enmeshed in the egoic world. And so it's painful to begin to become aware of this and make decisions from a very small, seemingly small force in our heart. Because whenever we've been watering the ego for so long, that is what is the loudest and the strongest and the biggest. And our higher selves are just a small little voice in our heart. But the more we can begin to notice when we're operating from this intertwinement with the egoic world, and with every ounce of courage and will that we have in our hearts, choosing to rip our roots away from this world one by one, through one decision at a time, one conversation at a time, one now moment at a time, before you know it, you won't be attached to this world anymore, and your ego will be smaller and quieter, and your soul, your highest self, will grow louder and louder and louder, until now that this is louder and louder and your ego's quieter, this is like your straight connection up to the divine. The bigger your highest, the louder and the bigger of presence that your higher self becomes from your heart, the stronger your connection to the divine will be, because you go from your heart center, your bottom three chakras, root, sacral, and solar plexus, are your human self. And so that's where you're detaching from your egoic. You're now using these lower centers for your heart instead of for your ego. And then you're entering into your heart chakra, where your higher self is, where your soul is. And as your heart chakra opens and your higher self, you become more embodied in your higher self, and it expands, then you just shoot straight up through the top three chakras to the divine, and then you have a clear channel to the divine. But you must do this work of separating from the ego, making the ego quieter, making your heart louder, right? Clearing and opening your bottom three chakras, which takes a while. It comes up to your heart. Well, for me, this is my own experience. I can only speak from my own experience, right? So when I started clearing my bottom three chakras, I felt anxiety in my solar plexus, and I felt almost like a crushing feeling in my heart for, I'm telling you, probably for like 2 years. And I'm not saying that this is what it's going to be like for you. This is what it was like for me for probably 2 years. I had this almost constant feeling of anxiety in my solar plexus and a crushing, sinking feeling in my heart, in my chest. And what was happening was everything that was trapped and stagnant in my lower 3 chakras was coming up to be looked at, addressed, released, so I could move forward into my upper chakras and purify my connection to the divine through my heart. And it was all I'm saying is I'm glad that I gained a lot of knowledge and wisdom and medicine over those 2 years, but I'm so grateful to have moved through it, which is the point. You will move through it, as painful as it seems, and as long as it seems to last, you will move through this. Do not be afraid when you begin to open your heart and rip away from your egoic attachments, and your heart begins to get louder. And so now everything that's been stuck in your bottom 3 chakras is starting to come up. Do not fear. Have compassion for yourself. Cry as much as you need to cry. Call your friends if you feel like you need support. Take bubble baths, let yourself drink hot tea and watch cozy movies that make you happy. Journal as much as you need to, but do not forget what is happening, and continue to talk to your higher self. Continue to talk to God through this experience, and you will be moved through it. But you must look at all of the parts of yourself that you were suppressing. You must feel all of the emotions that you have been suppressing so that you can move through them and allow your heart to expand, so then you can shoot up. And now that you have purified your bottom 3 chakras, you've opened them and you've released the trauma. I just don't like the word purified, but that's my own thing. You've opened your bottom 3 chakras and you've released all of the stuck stuff from there. So you're properly rooted and grounded into the earth. So now you're rooted and grounded into the earth. Your heart is open, and then you're going to shoot up and have a clear and open channel with the divine that's going to allow to reveal to you your life's path, right? So do not fear. It took me I don't want to say longer than it should have. Everything happens in divine timing, but it did take me my spiritual awakening. I was awoken in 2020. So in 2020, 2021, and 2022, about mid 2022 to June, I was just in my oh, this is so exciting. I'm going to gather as much information as I can. And I was having all of these insights and epiphanies. And then right at June 2022 was when all this stuff started coming up. And until mid this year, 2022 to 2024, I was in the trenches. I was in the underbelly of my soul. And it felt like I was going to be there forever. It felt hopeless. I'm sharing this not to scare you. I'm sharing this to reassure you that none of that was true. I've been reborn. But I had to sit with myself the past 2 years. I had to look at myself in the mirror the last 2 years. I had to release judgments and grudges. I had to release the ways I viewed the world that weren't rooted in the truth of God, that were rooted in the ego. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive the people in my life. I had to forgive the people of my past. I had to forgive the decisions I made in my past. I had to forgive the current decisions I was making. There was a lot of shit that came up that needed my love and attention and forgiveness and compassion and support in order for me to be reborn through my heart. And it feels scary to go through. It feels isolating, and it feels like you are in the underbelly of your soul. It feels like you're in the underworld, which you essentially are. You're in your subconscious mind. You're in the darkness. But the amount to which you're willing to sit with your darkness, the the amount to which you're willing to meet yourself in that space and not abandon yourself there, right? When we disassociate, when we numb out, we're abandoning ourselves, and we're basically just telling ourselves, well, good luck in that hellhole, hope you figure it out, which is not compassionate. And I'm not saying I'm perfect, I definitely did that. It took me 2 years. But when we numb out, when we refuse to look, we're abandoning ourselves. We are showing our inner self not to trust us. And we're not moving forward. We're staying stuck. And so we must go through this with as much compassion and forgiveness for ourselves as possible, so that we can clear all of that stuff and fully awaken into our heart, which is which also from the crown, but I have the deepest connection with the heart space. That is where I feel the most connected to the divine. For some people, it's the crown, but I really do believe it's the heart. You must purify the bottom 3 chakras in order to solidify your connection through your heart, and then therefore your connection with the divine. You're always connected to the divine. You're never alone. It just feels like you are because shit gets cloudy and dark for a little while. But to the level you're willing to meet yourself in the darkness is going to be tenfold the amount of light you will receive afterwards. I promise. So, the journey to meeting your higher self, or to awakening your higher self, can be painful, and that's why I think it's common for a lot of people to want to view their higher self as an external savior and not as something that is you, because it can be painful. But you'll only suffer if you identify with everything that arises. If you identify with the lack, if you identify with the unworthiness, if you identify with the past memories, that is how we suffer. But when we learn how to take our identification away from those things and bring our identification into our heart, identifying with our higher self, identifying with the divine, the suffering is lessened, because we no longer think that these things are us. We know that it's not us, it's just an experience we're moving through. So I hope this video was helpful. If you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask in the comments. And let's just take a few centering breaths. If there was anything that didn't resonate with you today, anything that felt wrong, or just anything that felt wrong or not right for you, leave it behind. You don't have to take it. If there was anything that did spark something in your heart, any type of remembrance, breathe into that spark in your heart and allow that remembrance to expand, creating space for it to grow. Let's take in a deep, full breath of air, and then as we breathe out, we'll make a tone, kind of clearing our energy field. So breathe all the way in. And breathe out any tone. One more, all the way in. And all the way out, make a sound. And we can open our eyes. Okay. I will talk to y'all later. Oh, and this is gonna play into my 21-day higher self integration challenge starting on December 1st until December 21st, every day at 3 p.m. Central. If you can't make the live, there will be a replay. I'll place the link below in the description box for that. But this is essentially what we'll be getting to know. We will be getting to know our higher selves from our heart, and we will be learning how to disidentify with our ego and more deeply identify with our heart space, with the observer, with the I am presence, the higher self, the Christ consciousness seed, whatever you want to call it. That's what we'll be doing, learning how to get in tune with that space and how to view our ego from a neutral place so that we can begin to disidentify with it. Okay, bye.